keeping your face.
People were contacting him in regards the Galveston County judge position or civil judge position. It's not a JP judge position. Therefore, the Galveston County judge position is an administrative position with the responsibilities of maintaining a budget for Galveston County, focusing on roads, bridges, drainage system, and the services of leadership for the managing of the meetings for the Galveston County Commissioner's Court as the person who leads or moderates the meeting, who prepares the agenda for the meetings, and therefore is an administrative position. You do not have to have a law degree to become a Galveston County judge. Now, there are some counties that are really small in size, and that particular judge is the judge for the criminal and the civil cases. And it is necessary that that particular judge have a law degree. In Galveston County, we're hovering around 350,000 people. So we elect our own district judges, civil and criminal. We elect our own JP judges. So they handle those court cases of that particular magnitude. And so therefore, the judge for Galveston County focuses on the departments. Galveston County elects its own sheriff, elects its own treasurer, elects its own clerk. And so as a result, that particular body of Galveston County has an elected leadership. That leadership for their particular body is required to come to the county judge for financing or for budget needs for that particular department. And so the DA's office, the Galveston County elects its own DA. And so the DA would come to the judge for employees, attorneys that are being appointed to cases. If someone doesn't have legal representation, then the DA's office would have an attorney appointed to that case. So as a result, they elect their own DA, their own sheriff, their own clerk, their own treasurer, etc. And then those particular elected officials govern those particular departments. Now, the Galveston County judge can have some influence because he controls the purse, he controls the money as far as budgeting is concerned, along with the commissioners that are on the commissioner's court. And so you don't have to be an attorney to be a commissioner of Galveston County Commissioner's Court. And so what is important is that you have some knowledge, some skills, some experience. And that's why I come in. I'm a 21-year city councilman for the city of Dickinson. I'm a mayor pro tem multiple times. I've worked in the city to balance budgets, to fund departments, to cut taxes, to be able to maximize monies for taxpayers in the city of Dickinson so that we have a water district and a city, and we're able to bring those two government entities under one roof, thereby maximizing the dollars of facilities. Rather than building two separate facilities, we built one facility that accommodates both entities, maximizing the taxpayers' dollars. So that's showing leadership and prudency and stewardship in your fiduciary responsibilities of managing taxpayers' monies. We also built a fire station on the east side of Galveston, of the city of Dickinson. So the families that live on the east side of the railroad tracks will be able to have a lower fire rating because the only fire station was on the west side of the fire tracks. And so if you had a fire at the same time a train was crossing, then the fire truck couldn't cross the tracks, thereby getting to that location to put out the fire, causing those residents on the east side to have a higher fire rating, therefore paying higher premiums on their fire insurance. And so it's just wise leadership as an elected officials to do what you can to lower the expenses of your residents in your jurisdiction. And that's exactly what we did. We built a fire station on the east side of the fire track, of the railroad tracks, so that if a fire does happen while a train is passing, then that fire truck can still get to any personal property or a commercial property and resolve the problem with the fire, and thereby lowering the fire rating for those residents and properties on the east side of the fire tracks. And that's the kind of leadership we bring to the table, is the one that is able to be proactive in strategizing and utilizing skills to help taxpayers save as much as they possibly can. And so not only we built fire stations, now we built city halls and facility for water district. We built libraries so that our young people can, in school, can have a place to go with programming and services and resources. And we created incentives for various businesses through our economic development. Through Dickinson Management District, we're able to provide greater resources for businesses and for the city needs by utilizing wisdom as a elected official. Street maintenance sales tax is another entity that we brought to the city of Dickinson. Having a animal services in Dickinson, we were paying thousands of dollars to the county for animal services needs, whether it be dog collection or whether it be dogs that are loose that have been prone to attack individual citizens. And so we were able to utilize that leadership, that wisdom, that common sense leadership, and build our own animal resource services, and then collaborate with other local municipalities that were smaller than ours who need the same services, partnership, thereby reducing the cost of those services for them and for the residents, because we would not be taking that entire cost on our citizens as a budget item. And so that's why I, William H. Keenan III, your candidate for Galveston County Judge, have demonstrated I have the credentials, not just 21-year city councilman, but also 27-year police chaplain, also a 15-year chaplain for the Dickinson High School football team, an 8-year member of the board of the Houston Galveston Council, where we brought billions of dollars to our region of counties, 13 counties in Galveston County, around Galveston County, that were part of this particular leadership effort, which we were able to provide methods of distribution so that other local county judges, county commissioners, school board trustees, mayors, city council members can have resources to address their issues during Hurricane Ike and Hurricane Harvey. And then to my own city, brought millions of tens of millions of dollars to the city by being on the board of HGAC, providing leadership, fair, honest leadership with veracity, integrity, so that we're doing the right thing. And that's what you get, a person with integrity, a person with honesty, when you elect William H. King as your next Galveston County Judge. And so you get someone who's qualified, that have demonstrated leadership. I went through the Texas Municipal League Institute to get my Leadership Academy certification. I've gone through school, college, seminary to get my degree as a pastor. 30 years of service I brought to the leadership of this church, this community, providing resources to this community during Hurricane Harvey, during the pandemic. Leadership is necessary and imperative to be able to perpetuate a community's progress and success, where you can be excited about where you live, excited about the location where you reside. And that's the kind of leadership you get with William H. King III, and that's extremely important, because with the current county judge, we were paying higher taxes. With the current county judge, we were gerrymandered out of our ability to vote. Our precinct was cut up to the degree where we had a majority minority precinct, so that you have taxation with representation, so that you could always have a representative of your liking or choosing on the court for Galveston County Commissioner's Court. This particular judge, with a lack of veracity, lack of integrity, lack of sincerity, chose to go party over people. And so that's the sad part about it. When you go party over people, you don't care who you cut out, and you cut out people that deserves representation. So he took a district that was majority minority, and then took and made it a 55% party precinct, and so making it impossible for a minority to ever be able to have the majority of votes to elect someone of their choice to represent them. And so that's the sad state of affairs. You're paying higher taxes. You've been gerrymandered out of your vote. Your vote has literally been taken away from you. And that's a sad state of affairs, that whenever we lose democracy in Galveston County or in the state of Texas, because a party is exercising bully pulpit and exercising a strong arm leadership style, then you will forget about the people that you were elected to represent. You might get elected by the party, but you can't govern like the party. You have to govern for all citizens doing the right thing. And that's one thing I certainly appreciate, that my track record, my legacy as a city councilman is I always listen to my constituents, my citizens, those that came into City Hall, those that called me or emailed. I always gave them a listening ear, and I always moved in a manner that respected their position. And when you have a county judge who does not care about the people that he represents, he only works on behalf of the party for which he was elected, he forgets about his number one priority, to be a leader for all the people, to maintain veracity, maintain integrity, to maintain being trustworthy, maintain the ability to be able to do the right thing. And so as a result, your democracy governs that. Democracy is the ability for you to be able to live in a nation where you can exercise your freedom of speech, exercise your freedom of existence, and as a citizen of this country. Listen, our nation fought for its independence. 1776, we won our independence and celebrated our independence. We wrote the Declaration of Independence. Men signed the Declaration of Independence. We wrote our Constitution, and men signed the Constitution. And thereby it governs how we live as a nation. One nation under God, endowed by created with such inalienable rights of liberty, justice, and the freedom of justice and speech. And so we have this right as citizens in the country of the United States of America, the most democratic country in the nation on the face of the earth is America. We represent democracy, not autocracy, but democracy, where people can be able to elect someone or speak or have a voice concerning the issues pertaining to their quality of life, their locale, their county, their state, their nation. That's why our democracy is so important. And so if you lose your democracy, such what just happened on January the 6th, when men and women went to the Capitol of the United States of America, claiming that the election was stolen somehow, when we had already had major court rulings from the Supreme Court to district courts, to state courts, to local courts, that their election process was filled with integrity and it was filled with accuracy. And there were no illegal ballots that were cast that should not have been cast by a person that was not authorized to vote. But yet they believed that ideology because it was being perpetuated by a leader that had been elected out of office of president of the United States. And therefore he had to leave the White House and did not want to leave the White House. So as a result, he convinced people through all the individuals he had around him that the election had been rigged, it wasn't real, and that he had won the election. Yes, more people voted in the last presidential election than in the history of the United States. And maybe that alarmed him to think that if all those people voted, somehow they voted for him. But he lost by not 1,000 votes, not by 10,000 votes, not by 100,000, he lost by millions of votes. And so he lost by a large margin of votes. And so it was clear that Joe Biden won the election, but yet he continued to perpetuate an untruth, and people believed him, thinking that somehow the election was stolen. He convinced them to travel from their homes to Washington, D.C. and fight like hell, was what we heard, and fight him. So I'm grateful for the committee of the January 6th that have unearthed all of this data and this information that collaborates and corroborates the reality that these lies were intended to rile the people that were a part of his base, and be able to go into somehow to the Capitol while the Senate and the House was validating the votes and say, we refuse to accept those votes. He tried to convince the Vice President of the United States of America somehow that he had the power to overturn the votes. Goodness gracious, we're in the United States of America, and a sitting president is trying to tell someone how to overturn the country he was representing. Makes no sense. It's ludicrous. But yet he stood for what was right. He refused to do so. And then he told the people that Mike Pence wasn't loyal, that Mike Pence wasn't committed. And as a result, the crowd was so riled up, they said, hang Mike Pence. Can you imagine wanting to hang the Vice President of the United States, who was still sitting as the Vice President? Look for elected officials, called out their names. Where are they? Went into the chambers of the House of Representatives, chambers of the Senate, went into the offices of the elected officials and just did all sorts of unconscionable things and trying to overturn the election. trying to rob us of our democracy. That would have taken away the legitimacy of Joe Biden's election. It would have turned this nation on end, and there would have been so much chaos. The sad part about it, not one National Guard was called, not one military branch was called. Matter of fact, they were suppressed from being called. All of that stuff was unearthed through the investigation of the committee. So we would have lost our democracy to have free and fair elections where we can elect someone of our choice. We can cast our ballot. And the democracy is that every vote counts. Whether you're voting for a Democrat or Republican or an independent, or whether your election is a city council, it is a nonpartisan election, or a school board, and it's a nonpartisan election, then you would have lost your ability to elect someone of your choice to represent your values. You lost your ability to be able to speak out and stand up for what you believe in. One of the greatest liberties we have is our freedom of speech. And so when you lose your democracy, you lose your ability to have a voice, because your vote is your voice. And therefore you receive your commands from some autocracy, some person who's sitting in a kingship position. We fought for independence to get away from that style of government and leadership, to be able to elect our own leader as the president, elect our own senators, our own House of Representatives, our own governors, our own state senators, our own state House of Representatives, our own county judges, our own leaders in our school districts, as far as the school boards is concerned. We have the ability to do that. You lose democracy, people appoint who they want to represent you, and it's not designed, our Constitution is not designed for them picking us. We pick them. And so it would have unearthed all of the values that we've enjoyed. They could tell you you have to go be at home inside your house by a certain time. They can establish curfews. They can establish where you can work, where you can't work. They can establish where you can live. And in this nation, there was a period during slavery and after slavery that blacks could only live in certain areas. And matter of fact, some of the deeds had on the documents that blacks could even purchase land in certain areas. And so in an autocracy, you tell people what to do. People don't decide what they want to govern themselves and how they want to govern themselves and the laws for which is created. Right now, we have a voice in the laws that are created. We can speak and say what we do want, what we don't want, and then it's taken to a vote. And then based upon the amendments that are the propositions on the ballot, we vote either yay or nay, but we do have a voice. That's the whole issue of democracy, is that as a citizen, you are allowed to have a voice to participate in the process of your existence. Being in a country where you exist, in a nation where you have no voice, is basically taking you backwards 150 years and saying you're pretty much in a slavery kind of situation where we tell you what to do, where you tell you how to live, we tell you how to be governed, and we demand upon you what you must do as far as your life is concerned. And so it's important for you and I to maintain our democracy in America. So I'm calling every man, every woman, every 18-year-old, every 17-year-old, 10-month person to register to vote, to be registered to vote, and then to vote, because our democracy is threatened. When you have those type of untruths being perpetuated, and then you have a process of a state legislator and a governor and a county judge coming together to try to create whatever restrictions they think deemable or necessary to keep people or restrict people or make voting so unpleasant that people don't go to the ballot box, then they've accomplished their objective. They don't want you to vote. They say, oh, voting is nothing, but voting is valuable. Voting is sacred. Voting is important. Voting is necessary, that we can continue to live in a free and fair country where we govern ourselves accordingly to the laws that we all agree to. That's how important it is. It determines how many stores you have in your community, how many gas stations you have in your community. It determines what time your kids start school. It determines what type of restaurants you have in your community. It determines what type of dealerships you allow in your community. It determines what kind of businesses you have in your community. It through zoning and through all of the factors that govern with how a particular elected body determines they want that particular municipality to function. How that school board trustees determine what times they want that school to start, who they hire, where the schools will be built. All that's determined through the democracy of being able to elect people of our choice that represents our values, so we can have a life and a quality of life that everyone can enjoy. So when you rob a people, democracy says we don't want certain kids going to certain schools. We don't want certain kids riding on certain buses. We don't want certain kids participating in certain programs. We don't want certain stores that provide certain resources for certain individuals. We don't want those in the store. We only want those, just the destiny. It changes the trajectory of that particular society. And so if you have a nation without democracy, then you have a certain police chief. And that police chief is dictated to by whoever hires him. And we don't want certain laws exercised in this particular community. And we want these particular type of people stopped and pulled over. We want to eliminate probable cause, just stop them just because they're in our community, drive them through. It all forms of, we cannot afford to go backwards. We cannot afford to lose our democracy. We cannot afford not to have democracy. Can you imagine being told you can't buy a house in a community that your money can afford? Can you imagine being told that the bank will not loan you money? The bank will not loan you money as a result of your color of your skin, or a result of your gender, as a result of your nationality. And so we're going to the ballot box come October 24th through November the 4th, and we're going to vote. And if we don't make it, then on November the 8th, election day, we're going to the polls and we are going to vote. We're going to vote because that's our voice. And we're going to vote like our lives depend on it. Because what we've seen already is the state legislators writing legislative laws that says you can't carry more than 7 people to the polls. You got to have these type of IDs.